betrayed, abandoned, and scorned. My husband chose his family's greed over my life and our unborn child. Did I do the right thing? The ultrasound picture taunts me from the nightstand, a grainy, black and white glimpse of the life that nearly cost me everything. My husband abandoned me to attend the luxury wedding of his brother and his wealthy fiancée while I was 9 months pregnant. Stop whining, he said. That phrase still echoes in my nightmares. A chilling reminder of the man I thought I knew. I filed for divorce. My name is Grace, and I used to think I had it all figured out. I had a great job as head of marketing, a loving husband named Mark, and I was single-handedly paying off our mortgage with my own salary. I felt pretty damn proud of myself for being financially independent. Family was a big part of our lives, or so I believed. Mark had a younger brother, Tom, and their mom, Linda, was always around. Their dad had passed away years ago, so the boys made it a point to look after her, which I found touching. Honestly, it made me love Mark even more, seeing how he cared for his family. Marketing campaigns weren't just my profession, they were how I viewed my life. I wanted to fit in with Mark's family, and it felt good to have her approval, or what I thought was her approval. Our first few years of marriage were filled with weekend barbecues, and I remember one Thanksgiving, all of us crammed around Linda's dining table laughing and talking over each other. "Pass the gravy, will you?" Mark's Uncle Bello boomed from the end of the table. "You've had enough gravy, or old man?" Mark retorted playfully. Taking in the familiar faces, I felt a sense of belonging. This was my family now, or so I foolishly thought. The first crack started to show during a New Year's Eve party at Linda's house. I was in the kitchen refilling my glass of wine when I overheard Linda snickering. "Did you see what Carol's wearing?" My hand froze on the bottle. Carol was a single mom struggling to make ends meet. "I'm just saying," Linda continued, her voice laced with venom. "Some people should know their limits. Don't try to play with the big boys if you can't keep up." I felt my cheeks burn with secondhand embarrassment. This wasn't a warm, welcoming family I thought I knew. Linda, Tom, and Mark, all three of them giggling like school children, mean-spirited and callous. And it wasn't just Carol who was in her crosshairs. At every family gathering, their heads were close together as they whispered and snickered. One Easter Sunday, I couldn't take it anymore. Linda was holding court in the living room. "Did you see Jeanette's new car?" Linda was saying, her voice low. "Probably got it from the buy here, pay here lot." "Hey," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "Don't you think that's a bit much? Johnny can probably hear you." The room went silent. "Well," she said, her voice drooping with sarcasm, "looks like we've offended your delicate sensibilities." Grace. Mark and Tom exchanged uncomfortable glances. "I just think it's rude," I pressed on, my heart pounding in my chest. "Why do you always have to put people down?" Linda's fake smile disappeared. "If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Why don't you go sit somewhere else?" I felt like I had been slapped. "Fine," I said, my voice trembling. "I will." From that day on, family gatherings became a special kind of hell. He'd throw me apologetic glances now and then, but he never came to sit with me. "Why don't you ever stand up to her?" I asked him one night after a particularly awful dinner. "She's my mother." "Grace," he sighed. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to tell her she's being cruel. I want you to have my back." But he never did. And slowly, I started finding reasons not to go to these family events, work emergencies, migraines, anything to avoid the cold stares and whispered insults. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, my heart started racing. 2 pink lines, my voice shaking. I called out, "Mark, can you come here?" He appeared in the doorway, his face concerned. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly, I held out the test. His eyes widened as he took it. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment, I felt like maybe everything would be okay. Maybe this baby would bring us closer together, heal the rifts that had been growing between us. But life had other plans. Constant nausea, dizziness. My doctor put me on bed rest. As the weeks went by, my condition worsened. Squinting at my laptop became impossible. With a heavy heart, I had to quit my job. I needed Mark more than ever, but he seemed to be drifting away. He'd come home late from work, citing extra projects or drinks with colleagues. I'd fall asleep alone. The day of my C-section arrived faster than I expected. My eyesight had worsened to the point where the doctors insisted on the procedure. Natural birth was just too risky. "Where's Mark?" I asked the nurse, my voice trembling. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Your husband's in the waiting room. He said he'd rather stay there." The surgery went smoothly, and soon I heard the most beautiful sound, my son's first cry. As they placed him on my chest, it took my breath away. Later in the recovery room, Mark finally showed up, his face a mask of discomfort and annoyance. "Grace, I got to say something. This whole thing, it's not right." "What do you mean?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. "Normal women give birth on their own, without all the surgery crap. We're not supposed to be here for this. We should be meeting our wives and kids at home like in the old days. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Save it. He cut me off. I'm heading home. This place gives me the creeps. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. He complained constantly. Can't you shut him up? He'd growl when our baby cried in the middle of the night. Colic, he's teething. I'd weakly reply, Mark, it hurts. All you do is focus on the kid. What about me? What about our sex life? I'd stare at him in disbelief, running on to hours of sleep. One evening, he dropped a bombshell. You need to go back to work. What? But the baby. We'll hire a nanny. He interrupted. We can't keep living like this, Grace. We need the money. I wanted to argue, but the determined look in his eyes told me it was pointless. So, with a heavy heart, I started the arduous task of finding work. With my compromised vision, it wasn't easy. I eventually landed a position at a smaller company. When I told Mark, his reaction was predictably negative. That's it. We're paying a nanny for this. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. I'm doing my best. It's not easy with my eyesight. Excuses, he muttered, walking away. And so began my new reality. Rushing to work each morning, struggling through the day with my limited vision. Then coming home to a resentful husband and a child who needed me. Time flew by in a haze of work and childcare. Despite the challenges, family gatherings remained a source of stress, particularly due to Linda's behavior. One Thanksgiving, I was holding my son as Linda approached. Come to Grandma. But he clung to me, turning his face away from this unfamiliar woman. What have you been telling him about me? You're turning my own grandson against me. He just doesn't know you well, Linda. If you visited more often, don't you dare blame this on me. She snapped, stomping off to complain to Mark. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, my world tilted on its axis once again. I stared at the pregnancy test in my hand, my heart racing. Positive, I was pregnant again. Fear gripped me. My first pregnancy had been so difficult, my health so compromised. Could my body handle another? But as I calculated the weeks, I realized I was already well into the first trimester. I dreaded the conversation. Mark, we need to talk. Mark, I'm pregnant. There was a long pause. Then, look, Grace, I'm busy. We'll talk later. Just don't quit your job. All right, we can't afford that. The line went dead. I sat there, stunned. Thankfully, this pregnancy proved easier than my first. My morning sickness was manageable and my vision remained stable. I continued working, determined to provide for my growing family. But as my belly swelled, the distance between Mark and me seemed to grow exponentially. He spent more and more time at his mother's house, often not coming home until late at night. One evening, I said hopefully, hey, can you read him a story? I'm exhausted. Don't wait up, he muttered before walking out the door. As the door closed behind him, I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I looked at my son, his bigger staring up at me trustingly. As my 7th month of pregnancy rolled around, I found myself preparing for Thanksgiving. Guests started arriving in the afternoon. Friends and relatives trickled in, filling our home with chatter and laughter. Just as I was about to serve dinner, the doorbell rang. Tom answered it and walked in with a smug grin plastered on his face. Standing beside him was a woman I had never seen before. Everyone, this is Melissa, Tom announced with pride. Melissa beams, my fiancée. The room fell silent for a moment. I swallowed, trying to force a smile. Then, Linda arrived shortly after, her eyes widening as she took in Melissa. Well, she said, her voice dripping with approval. Aren't you a sight for sore eyes? Throughout dinner, I tried to focus on being a good hostess, but I couldn't help overhearing their conversation. Tom tells me you're a manager at National Bank. Linda asked, looking slightly uncomfortable. Yes, I've been there for about 5 years now. You must be doing very well for yourself, unlike some people who can only pop out babies and breed poverty. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. My mother-in-law was sitting beside me, ready to speak up. Silently, I pleaded with her not to make a scene. Melissa then spoke up, you know, her voice sickeningly sweet. Now, that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always dreamed of. Smart, beautiful, successful. Linda beamed that she made a decision right there and then. I think we should continue this lovely evening somewhere more suitable, Linda stated. Standing up, she continued, Melissa, dear, why don't we all go to that new restaurant downtown? Melissa agreed with a nod. Before I could process what was happening, Linda, Tom, and Melissa were heading for the door. Mark didn't even glance back at me as they left. The remaining guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One by one, they made their excuses and left. They offered to help me with the dishes, but I refused, saying that they needed to rest. It was nearly done when I heard the front door open. Mark stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. He didn't say a word as he made his way to the bedroom. With shaking hands, I opened my phone to social media. There they were, Linda, Tom, and Melissa, grinning for selfies at an expensive nightclub. The caption read, best Thanksgiving ever with my real family. As my due date approached, I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The doctor scheduled my C-section, insisting it was the safest option, given that it had been less than 3 years since my last one. I tried to focus on preparing for our new arrival, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with Mark. One chilly winter afternoon, I found him unpacking bags full of summer clothes. "What's all this?" I asked, puzzled. Mark shrugged. "Just so good sale. Thought I'd update my wardrobe." It didn't make sense, but with the impending birth occupying my thoughts, I pushed my suspicions aside. I had been meticulously saving money in a separate account, determined to take a couple of months off work to recover and bond with the new baby. My workplace had approved 2 months of unpaid leave, which was a relief. I had set aside enough for the mortgage and all of our bills. For once, I thought things were going to be okay. I was resting on the couch when Mark burst through the door, Linda hot on his heels. "Honey, where have you been?" I struggled to my feet, shocked at what they were doing. "Mark, what are you doing?" He barely glanced at me as he tossed his belongings into a suitcase. "Tom's getting married in Hawaii. We're all going." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. But my C-section is in 3 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" "You always do." The door slammed, leaving me in stunned silence. The reality of the situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. I scrambled for my phone, my hand shaking as I checked our joint account. All the money I had saved was gone. With trembling fingers, I dialed Mark's number. He answered on the final ring. "What?" He snapped. "The money." I choked out. "Where is it?" "There was a pulse. We needed it for Tom's wedding gift." "Don't be so greedy, Grace." The line went dead. A sharp pain lashed through my abdomen. I looked down and recalled to see a puddle forming at my feet. My water had broken. I couldn't go into labor now. The risk of my previous C-section scar rupturing was too great. With one hand on my belly and the other clutching my phone, I called the emergency services. The hospital was chaotic, doctors shouting, nurses rushing around. I woke hours later to the gentle beeping of monitors. My mother's tear-stained face swam into view. "Grace," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're okay." Slowly, the fog lifted. I nearly died. My baby had nearly died, but I was feeling surprisingly strong, both physically and emotionally. The doctors were pleased with my recovery and gave me the green light to go home. Mark hadn't called once since he left for Hawaii. At that moment, I knew the last ember of love I had for him had been extinguished. I called my parents and asked to stay with them for a while. Their response was immediate and supportive. My parents supported my every decision. I began to formulate a plan for my future. While there, I started researching divorce lawyers and gathering documentation of our finances. Then, exactly a week after I left the hospital, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering on the third call. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you at home?" Mark screamed on the other end of the line. I took a deep breath. "I'm with my parents, with both of our sons." I filed for divorce. There was a moment of silence. "Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you, everything you've done?" I felt a surge of anger. "You mean like abandoning me right before I gave birth, or stealing all our savings? I'll pay you back. No problem. In fact, I don't even want to see you again. You know why? Because I'm going to be rich." Melissa and Tommy began rambling about how they were going to start their own financial company, how she was going to make them all wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. "You never believed in me, Grace. You always shut down my ideas, always held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now, and you're just a loser who can't see potential when it's right in front of her." The line went dead. The realization that I knew nothing about the man I had married sunk in, and with that, a wave of relief washed over me. The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Mark, predictably, contested everything until his attorney informed him that he had a strong case. He was unwillingly required to continue his tirade about Melissa's wealth and agreed to pay alimony. I still remember the day I went to court like it was yesterday. The judge awarded the house to me without hesitation. He sneered as I walked in. "I'll be in a mansion soon, swimming in cash. You'll see what you missed out on." As he walked out the door, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The house suddenly felt bigger, brighter, and full of possibilities. A year and a half had passed since the divorce. Life has settled into a new normal for me and my boys. I am finding a balance between my career and motherhood that I never thought possible. It wasn't always easy, but we were happy, healthy, and safe. One ordinary Tuesday, as I was going about my day, I read a headline that sent shivers down my spine. "Lee's family in ruins." The article detailed a shocking scandal involving Melissa, Tom's wife, non-existent financial company. They had even mortgaged Linda's house, pouring every penny they had into this imaginary venture. But Melissa wasn't a banker at all. She was a con artist who had swindled them all. She disappeared with millions, leaving behind forged documents and broken dreams. As I read on, a mix of emotions washed over me: disbelief, confusion, and, I'll admit, satisfaction. The consequences were severe. Unable to repay their debts, Linda lost her house, their cars, even their personal belongings. They were left with nothing but mountains of debt. I heard through the grapevine that Linda had been forced to take a job as a cashier just to afford a tiny apartment in a bad neighborhood and groceries. I was beyond grateful that I had divorced Mark when I did. My children and I were safe, unaffected by the financial disaster that had befallen my ex-husband's family. Then, just when I thought I'd put it all behind me, my phone rang. Linda's number flashed on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. Linda's voice was small, defeated. "Grace, we need your help. We were wondering if we could move in with you, as our family has nowhere else to go. The children need their father and grandmother." She insisted. "You can't leave your family in trouble." I took a deep breath, memories flooding back to Thanksgiving humiliation, being abandoned before my C-section. All of it came rushing back. "Family," I said, my voice cold and unwavering. "You weren't concerned about family when you left me alone and pregnant. You weren't concerned about your family when you stole my savings. You weren't concerned about your family when you called me a loser." Linda started to protest, but I cut her off. "I'm sorry you're in this situation, Linda, but I'm not responsible for the choices you and Mark made. My priority is my children, and I won't expose them to the chaos you've created. Please don't contact me again." I hung up, then immediately blocked her number. Did I do the right thing? I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspective on this whole situation. Looking back on everything that happened, from the subtle jabs and insults to the blatant betrayal and abandonment, do you think I made the correct decision in cutting them off completely? Was I justified in protecting myself and my children, even if it meant turning my back on a family in crisis? I've wrestled with guilt and uncertainty, wondering if I should have offered some kind of assistance, despite their past actions. Every opinion is welcome as I try to process everything that has happened and make sure that I don't repeat the same mistakes in the future.